There you are! We've just been in a box since last week. Welcome
Hey.
to the continuation of the Automation Seminars, where we're fine. It's a very special day today because I'm not going to be talking much. Yay, you don't have to listen to me anymore because we've got interesting people from outside of the contact bubble, which is great. So I shouldn't say outside the contact bubble, outside of the contact ball bubble, because we're going to be talking to other manipulators.
This is the other props session.
Exactly,
the
other props chat. Because, yeah, like kind of since its formation as a thing, contact juggling, it immediately started filtering out outside of his contact ball. And it's become now a huge thing. Contact X prop is established now. So we see contact staff, we see contact poi, even more modern forms of manipulation like buugeng. We're seeing contact buugeng exploding. But then even if you look back to Motion, and we always kind of come back to Michael Motion and his work when we're talking about this stuff, because he was ahead of the curve in so many different ways. He was manipulating not just balls, he was doing rings and he was doing S-shaped staffs way back and using the same kind of theory and applying it there. So we've seen it kind of explode even from the initial times. But yeah, we've got loads of interesting people here who kind of have gone deeply into how we can take contact into other worlds. And really, I kind of want to hear their sort of sides of things. We've spoken a lot about the history of, we talked a lot about where that's kind of come from here. I was wondering, maybe for staff first, I know Sebastian, you're kind of somewhat versed in this, but like your kind of experiences with how contact entered into staff, and in the time that you've been doing it, how it's kind of changed as well.
All right, hello. I think contact staff itself is pretty old. The oldest example we found is Feature, which is some 5,000 years old. Feature meaning the flying fork. It's an ex-center balanced staff with 3 blades on one side. And it was mainly used as a weapon. It's a training tool in Kung Fu. And that's the oldest representative I know of in terms of contact staff. As from a personal history, here in Austria, where I'm from, I came to first contact with it in 2003. Before that, there was the myth of contact staff, but basically the whole of contact staff was taking a staff and placing it on this side of the neck and taking it out, a neck wrap. That was contact staff, like one trick. And yeah, what has happened since? A lot. It exploded in so many directions. There has been what I would say is Western contact style, which is like based on working a lot with levers, like putting one arm up so the prop runs down the other side. There is Chinese contact style, the Feature, which is all about rolling. So it's featuring heavily of one movement. I like the Australian style, which is for me is staff on staff contact. So using one staff as the base as another one. Later, I think with a video of Cal McLean, he has his own theory of contact staff. Yeah, and we are at a time where now everything is branching down. Like before, as said, contact staff, one movement. Now we have family of tricks, which get explored deeper and deeper and deeper. And I feel like in the whole of juggling, like in the beginning, you were a juggler. Now you are a contact staffer, and I'm a contact staffer working in the field of fishtails. That's it, you know? So it's getting smaller. Yeah, so it's expanding immensely at the time, I find.
And do you think those kind of regional styles like you described there, is that still quite an ingrained thing? Like people who are coming out now posting stuff up on Instagram, maybe younger jugglers, are they still kind of fitting into those niches, or is it more they'll kind of pull from different places?
Yeah, I think obviously through the internet there is a certain element of mixture in the styles, and to be fair, like this separation's there in my head, like it's not written down anywhere. This is just like how I use things. Feature is the only discipline I know who is very strict on rules. like a friend of mine went to the national school in Beijing to train, and he did what we Europeans like to do. He offered a new trick, and they were insulted. Like in China, if you are a master for like 20 years, you're allowed to invent one new trick. So imagine a student from Austria coming, and then day 3, he's like, I got a variation on this. So they hated it. So that's feature, strict rules. And I would say there is, due to the fact that, like, for example, in Europe, certain theories go around, so people work on that theories and deepen that kind of approach. And as I only know from America, like Floette scene, I only know from videos and this kind of things. I've never been there. They do things a little bit different ideas than there are in Australia or in Europe or in Asia. They're all based on the same move, but they have different ideas to them. I don't know if I should go more into this. So.
Well, we can definitely come back into this. So I think this is interesting because as well, we see that with contact ball as well. We do see these kind of regional variations and things. And it's interesting now to see, because the community is more spread out with the internet, that how these things are changing and how that categorization like that isn't quite as accurate as it once was, but like these kind of variations kind of start to filter through to other things. And but no, that's so that's kind of the more historical view. That's really interesting. I'm sure, I'm well aware that it goes much deeper and much deeper. Just before moving on, do you think that the kind of contact juggling as the ball contact becoming a popular thing, do you think that's had an impact on contact staff as well?
Yeah, massively. Or from my experience, like one of the great examples might be Pish, which I'm sure you all know really well. Like there was this, Mike is not here right now, that's a shame. The way, like, for example, the whole anti-spin isolation theory in staff evolved, that was like, I think Monkey Simeon from London was doing the first 4-point anti-spin with the staff. Then Mike went into hiding for a couple of months, and then he came back with this video, which was the statement of double staff anti-spin. And then there were several people involved in like pushing this further. For example, also Ima Kokode from Paris, who is a good friend of Pish. And as far as I know, he explained his theories to Pish, who translated it to the 4-ball multiple contact theory. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way I know it. And then he did this amazing thing to redesigning the stuff to make this small isolation pattern, which then freaked out the staffers. Like when 2007 in Uber Paris, he was on stage. He was very nervous. He's performing in front of staffers, and we all melted because we have never seen something that clean. And
do we want to find that magnetic baton video that Pish did? That's a great statement on that.
Yeah.
And Ken confirmed Pish has told me basically that exact history as well. So at least from his point of view, that seems correct.
Yeah. And I think the remarkable thing is that theory was taken from double staff, and then Pish applied it to contact ball. And then the major fact for me was that when he translated this theory back to staff, by just putting balls on the end of the staff in order to make the isolation more visible, like changing the staff design because of this was like quite remarkable. Like, yeah. I think for you guys, a ball is always a ball. Like it's maybe more like, yes, of course it's round, but with the staff you have much more options in terms of how the design of the staff can change the technique.
I mean, obviously we get very geeky with like the different sizes and things.
Of course.
And weights and things like that. But basically, yes, you're right. You're essentially always kind of got the same properties on the go. The Q-tips. I mean, the anti-spin ball video he did had a huge impact on multi-ball contact juggling at the time. And that was really, let's transpose all these theories from double staff and put them onto them or like into this flat plane, and we can do all the same things. But yeah, I mean, the thing that's all this like that precision as well. You can just see it so clearly with. Here we go. Yeah. Like
He's
such
actually
a
quite
clean.
fast compared to what he does now. He's so fast.
Yeah, I wonder if that's specifically for this this routine, but no, it's and yeah, and then seeing that it's not just the rolling side of contact that got put out there as well. That illusion style that we would like really try and harbour in context like translates across so well.
It's funny because when I started this discussion, I was like, it's all about the rolling contact. I never even considered the isolation effects, but of course, like that's like huge, right?
Well, to kind of like keep just keeping this moving at the start here as well. I think that's one of the big things with the buugeng as well. How, I mean, for my kind of personal viewing of it, it feels like it's in this kind of in between. It's got the manipulation of the staff side with a lot of the illusion and isolation stuff that has that kind of wow factor with contact. And just like, Kaylie, you are the person to talk about this because in terms of doing innovative stuff with buugeng, I think a lot of it did kind of originate from your research there. But yeah, what was your experience kind of coming into buugeng and?
So buugeng and S-staff in general was my first prop that I picked up. So I came into it totally with like no preconceived ideas, you know, and I think, and also I had no teacher, and these are two of my biggest reasons why I explored them so uniquely. And also at the time I was dating a contact juggler named Noah Weigel. And so I never really put these two together until I was reading your notes for this video. And it was like, you know, how did contact juggling inspire how you play with a prop? And I don't know, I just kind of had this like moment of like, wow, I actually think, that my partner at the time had a huge impact. But I didn't necessarily then notice it, you know, because I did do the typical, you know, wrist spin, buugeng, here's an illusion, here's an illusion sort of thing. And I kind of exhausted that before I started getting into contact play. So I feel like by the time I started researching contact moves, maybe I wasn't like in that main mindset of, you know, what has inspired this. It was more, I think, probably my own boredom that
you get that like out of the box kind of routine and things that's like, well, this is what you learn first, but now I've learned that, so where do I go after this?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think in ways definitely contact juggling had a lot to do with my inspiration. I think contact staff as well. And it's just been a lot of researching, and I feel like maybe that started about 4 years ago. And I feel like it's been picked up by people just in the past, or like contact buugeng specifically in the past, you know, 2, maybe 3 years. So it's like, it's so fresh, you know, it's so new. There's so much unexplored stuff there. And it's really exciting to me.
It has been, like, not doing it myself, but Lisa's been so involved with this. But it's so exciting to watch new stuff that's coming out. It really does feel like when Contact Ball has had these explosions of creativity in the scene. Do you want to watch a bit of that EJC video there, because I think this is great, and as well because this is such a good place to put this.
Kaylie's video?
Yes, I think it's in the doc.
Yep, I got it.
We're so professional. Swish.
Yeah, see, look, I was pro. Look, got it. So this is 2016.
Yeah, at Alamere.
Mm.
Oh, I also, was introducing kind of balancing as a concept with buugeng, which most people, it blew a lot of people's minds because it's such a movement-based prop. It brings its illusion through the movement. So to add this stillness to it, I guess.
Yeah, which is a lot of the kind of isolation in any discipline is based on that stillness, that body stillness. It's uncanny.
Yeah.
Do you have a dance background or anything that taught you that in advance, or is it something?
I did take dance as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I was never very good though.
No, but I can see it in your work.
Yeah.
Unlike someone like me who has zero training in that, I can see it already just in your form that like you have some idea of, what form is, and certain dance techniques can tell you. I love that bracket. It's really neat. Can give you some information there. So yeah, that's interesting, but it doesn't actually inform your practice, right? Because it's not taking away from the uniqueness of it.
Yeah, thanks. And I think definitely movement and just kind of exploring movement, because a lot of what I saw with buugeng was very static, like people or bodies were static. People were standing there in one spot, creating this illusion here and this illusion here. And so I tried to create a story, I guess, and have it very movement, body expression, as well as prop expression.
It was a really good moment there when you did the arrow. That was a really good moment to say that, because it really does come through. Awesome.
But yeah, and so definitely like having this at an EJC stage, so being viewed by jugglers as well is, I think really pushed it forward. And focusing on a single blade as well, like that kind of stuff is,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I did get a lot of messages after that video got published, I guess, of people being like, what are you doing? You've broken my brain. Like I've never seen this prop used like this before. And that's super cool. And I feel like something unique with buugeng is the style of contact buugeng actually has influenced how the prop is designed. So beforehand, they weren't designed for contact moves. And now that it's coming into popularity, the actual construction, how
we've got some of the
yeah, exactly. So this is a lovely example.
Durable plastic ones instead of the wooden ones are so beautiful, but not survive being dropped.
They're going to be dropped. And that's sort of something, it really ties into something I want to talk about, which is actually a little bit farther back in the history before both of these. Am I heard?
Yep.
A couple glitches, great. So where Piche told me some of the history and Remy Larocini about this man who did the first ISO hoop in Germany, I think, in 1996. And I wish I had his name, but we should research that again. And that sort of influenced how people would do ISO hoop. And I think hoop was one of the first ones that this has been continuing. Hoop is one of the first ones that this has been applied to. And I took Dustin sort of randomly because I know he's really clean and beautiful. Of course, Piche and many other people do really good versions of this, but that ISO technique and the hoops on the body, rhythmic gymnasts have it, that sort of thing. But this is not a very good example. He was doing so many beautiful ISOs right before that. Great. And that beautiful hoop technique where it's always isolated, and which actually doesn't cross over into hooping very often. They do isolations, but their standards are different, and it's actually really not the same trick, even though they have the same name. And
it feels like there's a very different intention often it feels almost like rather than the weightless kind of flowy illusion we're seeing there, it feels like it's more of keep it moving and keep it kind of splitting there, kind of for the hooping.
Yeah, and I know like Dustin's kind of been out, but this is like some lovely stuff and uses a lot of that VTG anti-spin stuff that started growing over the 2000s and early 2010s, I guess how you say it. You know, this is, you can see even because he's got the pooping that this is already like 2011, 2012. So yeah, 2014 is here. So, but yeah, so I think the first prop that it really transferred to was ISO hoop. And then it would you say it'd be safe to say it went over to stick after that?
I'm not super sure on which year, but I said Pish was doing it 2007 in Uber Paris, and I would believe it was 2005, 6 that there was this big MCP video. Like before that, David Janolan, Marcus List and me, as well as Ima Kokode, were pushing for like more simplified movement of the stuff, but we didn't. It was like trying to find something else than spinning really fast, you know. But it was definitely MCP's video that opened the eyes for us in terms of what anti-spin and isolation can be with stuff. Yeah. Mm. And I think it then also at Uber Paris, Noel Yi was there at Uber Paris, and he brought it back to the States and built the whole the thing I can't spell.
The VTG,
yeah. Over a long period of time, and the reason it's called Vulcan is because it was really related to everyone going in and out of that space, right? So
yeah.
Go on.
Oh, and just that there's a bit of like contact club. I think that MCP video, I don't do this very often, but this is something that for me was part of my history because this was filmed in my house. Where, right. Yeah, this is Mellors. And so in 2008, I think it was because of MCP's video that him and I started really making a little bit of contact club manipulation stuff. And he was doing it clearly before that, doing isolations with club in the Modern London video. And doing these rolls, and then I'd started trying to do it like chest rolls and body rolls, and then it went into a larger plane in which other people have taken it. Where is the video for that? The Contact Club. No, that's not it. But I will look for that.
Yeah.
So just a bit of history of like that MCP video sort of also spread. We were like, oh wait, but we can put this to clubs and we can put this to different props, and that was sort of in an interesting, that's when it exploded. Really, it was really exciting. That MCP video really changed things.
And looking at like timelining stuff like that, we're seeing now that there's been a bit of a change in that previously so many disciplines used a bit of contact. Like historically, like with the hoops, you would see that very like classic tricks like the Branson rolls of rolling up the back with the hoops and keeping the continuous motion there. Like a chest roll in a toss juggling act or something like that, there would be a moment of what we would consider a contact move, like catching behind the neck and going up to head rolls. But it's only more recently that it's become a thing that's an entire routine, an entire style. Someone can dedicate their kind of all of their artistic drive into making something that is kind of contact based. And so much like, because contact juggling has this name, it became just a useful kind of adjective to stick on front of other things, which kind of left us slightly screwed with contact juggling, because now it's like, well, everything's contact juggling. So which is kind of what I want to talk about. It's like, how do we share this stuff? How do we move these ideas around? Because we are still kind of separate communities. So we did a watch party last night with Drew, where he watched a lot of contact videos, and it was a bit much for him to do kind of 2 nights in a row. But Drew was doing a lot of research. Kind of back in the day, he was doing a lot of research with Stick, with Poi, working on isolations with Poi and things like that. And what he said really mirrors what you were talking about in one of your workshops, Kaylie, that what he was doing at the time, because there were so many talented people around in Bristol and London, he was talking to everyone, seeing what they were doing, and then just trying to do it with every prop. So literally turning up with a stick and trying to learn everything with a stick. But I know that kind of feeds into your philosophy.
Yeah, for sure. That was, I mean, I started going to a lot of circus and juggling conventions in Australia. And there was just no S-staff classes or buugeng classes. And so I would just, you know, and because like that prop was my prop and I had zero interest in playing with others, I would just bring it to a dragon staff class or a hooping class and just kind of do my own weird thing in the back. And I developed a lot of concepts through that. And it's also just a lot of fun.
What's like the most abstract like props that you've tried to replicate?
Oh, I've tried to do a like double contact staff, which was very strange. I mean, it's strange just to begin with. I'm trying to think. That's what comes to mind. Was probably one of the most ridiculous ones.
Like buugeng on buugeng, balancing and
yeah,
things.
like trying to like fold and things like that.
Actually, Gail O'Brien came to my contact juggling class in EJC once and took my entire butterflies class with a hoop and like was doing all the vortexes and everything.
Yeah.
It's really fun to try. And I mean, I've certainly done it with just chest rolls or behind the neck rolls, but I haven't applied them to whole. And it's always to contact. Yeah, it's interesting, right? To really find that, where do these two meet? What do they have in common?
Yeah, I've developed a workshop now that I teach, which is called Developing New Moves, and it's open to all props. And at one point, I get people to teach their move to someone with a different prop. Yeah, and to just see what they can come up with.
Yeah, it creates fascinating stuff. Go on, Sebastian.
Two thoughts. So Gail O'Brien did in a convention we met, and she introduced a workshop idea which was fascinating, which is just like everybody goes in a circle, all props, all levels, whatever, and people just show something they are fascinated with, they are training and what they like, and everybody tries to interpret what they see in their own style. You can interpret it technically, you can interpret it visually, you can interpret it rhythmically, like however you want. And it was quite amazing what came out of this. I mean, lots of drops obviously, but like just like the amount of creativity in terms of people showed something which is that visual thing, and somebody else just picked the rhythm and created a rhythmical piece, which was very interesting. And so this is a game I like to play when I go to conventions now, and I learned it from Gail. And the other thing I think is that at least in contact stuff, we're starting now to try to formulate underlying techniques and theory underneath it, and I think this will make it a lot easier to go cross props. Like if you can, for example, show the balance points and pivot points and rolling points on the body with contact stuff, then I'm sure you guys can pick it up and do your own interpretation with contact ball or contact buugeng or whatsoever, you know. But not just thinking in terms of this is my trick, now you do it, but this trick contains this technique. Which ones can you use?
Do you want to go into that a little bit, just because you were talking about levers the other day, and it was like, oh, I never considered that to be a lever, and I love that. Like as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you're like referring to. Do you have a short form like 8?
Like generally, maybe this ties in two directions. The one is like the historical, or there's different scenes, how I perceive them. Like a classic trick with us is an angel roll, like when you have the staff on one end and then it rolls and pivots on the back of your body to the other hand. I'm not sure if you know it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So if you look at this one, I find it quite, it's quite obvious there. Like for example, if you take, if I look more into the flow out scene, they work a lot with levers. So one up is up, and I let the stuff go there, and gravity pulls it down, and it rolls down on the other side. So they work with levers. That's the main thing. In more Europe, this is all generalizing, okay? It's not really like that, but rule of thumb. So in Europe, quite often it's worked to, instead of levering, you push into the prop and you pull out on the other side. So it's pull and push angel roll. And if you go into Chinese Feiche, which they have great technique. In Chinese Feiche, they actually separate the angel roll. They always have a two-part trick system, which I find is unique. For example, they have, I think Chinese base 3 is a trick where you just, if we go in there, I think it's, all right, this is one-arm rolls. I just picked this video before I went here. I didn't really did my research, sorry.
There's no rush.
All right, but yeah, maybe go back a bit. I think 1 minute or 47 seconds, it starts with the Feiche. I'm not sure if it does an angel roll in there. But what is interesting there is Feiche is all about rolling. Like they never do anything that would harm the rolling, and they want to build up speed, because it was a weapon, and so you can strike faster. So they don't balance or they don't pivot, they just roll. And in the angel roll, they have one trick to bring momentum and speed and rolling energy into the staff, and then they turn into the angel roll, and they can do something amazing. Both their arms are pointing downwards. So in a Chinese angel roll, the staff will roll up, down, up, down. And they create this illusion of a staff rolling upwards against gravity by having a separate trick, which is kind of the engine, the motor to drive this trick. And I think that's, so either way you can use levers, you can push into it and pull out of it, or you can have one trick to build the momentum and then another trick where you execute. So in Feiche, you do a lot of energy and then you stand still and let the staff do the work. So that's different ways of thinking of the same trick.
So this is amazing. Like the ties between that and body rolling in contact are direct. Like when we talk about a bridge roll, which is coming from up the arm and then rolling up to here, it's that same thing. It's that moment we need, like you say, that engine, that propulsion to go up. It can't be a throw though, because you don't want to break that illusion, that immersion, but you need to redirect it up. And even down to you saying the difference between levering, letting gravity start it, or moving underneath it. That's a discussion that we have in contact ball as well. How do you start a roll? Do you use gravity to start it, or do you push underneath it? And how can you play with that stuff?
Just to clarify, I understand what you say, but I really have to point out the Feiche. I will look for a video and post it later. It's really amazing how they, if I would translate it in my head now to contact ball, I would say, spin the ball on your finger really fast. So that's your engine. And then you let go and hit a pose. Like in Feiche, you hit a pose and you don't move an inch. And you have to hit the pose perfectly, and then the ball or the object will travel the distance by itself. Like this separation, this clear separation, for me is unique.
Then Tim teaches an entire contact juggling workshop just on that. In fact.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yes. I mean, he doesn't spin it. It's not like an engine spin, but it is a take a pose, roll the ball. So that's that's really interesting. There is a certain element of that can be translated.
Well, we talk about like transposition, like that, like translation, like transposing these things. And again, you kind of touched on this, that you're saying with kind of making. If we talk about the underlying theories, if we talk about the pivot points and things like that, then we can share this stuff around so much easier. I think that's really interesting. I think that's something that it's worth discussing, and to get kind of your point of view of this, and anyone else who's got experience in other things, that the physicality, the physical properties of the object, of your prop, are going to affect the type of contact that you do. So if we think about a ball and a staff and how are they similar, it's you're thinking of that line straight through. So if you're balancing that line on a vertical, right, so horizontal, and as it's rolling, it's going end over end. So with the staff, you're allowed this kind of stuff. You've got this inertia that you don't have with a ball. But then oh, go on, Don.
Sorry, no, it's just what I was thinking when I'm watching this, is because like his range of movement with his feet and his legs seem to be a lot. He seems to be able to reach it easier, and I'm sure it's not easy, but like there's only one person in contact juggling that's doing that and putting that time and work in, and clearly he's done an enormous amount of work. This is extremely well done. But just that, I think that that's easier with a staff. There are some things that are easy, like the matrix roll, for example, is a really good example of things that can be done because of the inertia of the staff, rather than you having to push the ball around your body and break your back.
Oh yeah, go on.
Like in terms of staff design and how it changes technique, I think one worth mentioning is the so-called dragon staff. Actually, what I know, it dates back to the oldest picture I've seen was 1920 in a traditional circus as an antipodal prop. Like you lay on the back, you do stuff with your feet, and it was exactly the same appearance like the dragon staff of Gora. He introduced it. His first burn was 2004 in Austria. Woohoo! Something happened in Austria. And what is interesting about the dragon stuff is that because you have this separation of, like, on the end you have a bigger diameter, like you have the stuff big diameter here, big diameter here, it means that the roll gets slower. So it slows down the roll. That's why also some people call it contact stuff with training wheels, because it gives you more time. And also it saves a ton of inertia. Like if you do, that's why also Fature, the rolling technique, works really well with dragon stuff, because, like, for example, in a Fature move, you never want the stuff to roll down your arm, stop the rolling at the neck and come back up, which is like a traditional contact staff move. In Fature, you don't want to stop it, you want to keep it rolling. And it's important with dragon, because dragon stuff will eat your skin and your hair and just keep rolling and eat you up. So that's why, yeah, Fature and dragon stuff work quite well together.
I've had that happen. I've definitely had the, like, all the backs of my hairs be like, I'm gonna do this. Ow, ow.
Beautiful faces.
Oh.
So yeah, and I think only now it's starting to have more like experimental designs in the staff world, in terms of how can we, now certain people have reached certain levels with their tricks, so they can start now challenging their technique by changing the object design. Like I'm playing around with at the moment with like having a weighted ball in the inside of the staff, so it fucks my center up. Sorry, it disturbs the center of my balance. Right now I'm just dropping, but I'm hopeful that at some point something will come out of it. And I know other people do stuff like this as well, like just to really try to,
now, does
evolve
contact
technique.
staff and contact club, do they have a lot in common?
They cross over, yes, for sure. Especially like in the fishtail world, yes, they do. And also, I think I put the Mist video into the he's always worse. Mist Romain Magritte. Triple staff contact.
Triple staff contact, yep, it's here.
Yeah. So he is definitely one of the innovators since ever. And this is not the video, I didn't find it. The rooftop juggling video in 2016 changed contact staff. And it's very popular now to do triple staff contact combined with throws and this kind of things. And he just started, what was it? I think 2012 or 14, he said like, okay, I'm gonna try now and simplify each contact move, but multiply the number of crop.
Yeah.
And yeah, he does beautiful
really
work.
Just hanging out in a jungle and just doing research for a long period of time. Awesome. So that seems to be more combining juggling, toss juggling.
Yeah, it's not the perfect video. I'm really sorry.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. It's if he's an important guy, that's great.
But again, we see like toss juggling has incorporated so much more of these kind of contact ideas as well. We see this kind of hybrid, this sort of fusion of the rolling and the toss at the same time. Just before moving off that topic, Kaylie and Lisa as well, because you're both in the buugeng kind of side of things. How does that shape, a shape that wasn't designed for contact, how do you feel that translates? How is it to manipulate?
I would say it's quite different. I mean, Lisa, you chime in because you do a lot more contact ball than I do. I guess the thing with buugeng is there's so many more planes just in the prop than a ball or a staff even. So that
Hey, Archer.
yeah. Oh yeah.
He has a very, I mean, yes, Kaylie, you have a very unique style, but I haven't seen anybody other than him trying what he's been trying, which I think is incredible. I haven't asked him any questions about his research or how he came up with it, but it's so, in my eyes, inspired by what we do in contact, or can be related to what we do in contact if it wasn't inspired. Just that he avoid grabbing the props.
Yeah, and I feel like he does
holding it.
Yeah, he does a lot of sort of down the arm rolls, or I don't even, slides maybe is a better way to describe it.
Yeah,
like
they're more slides because
the handle's like sliding, kind of that lever motion that Sebastian you were talking about.
Because his basic hold is balance on the wrist.
Yeah. So this.
Sorry,
go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say he's like, I've never seen anyone even trying to mimic this style. Like, he really has such a unique approach. Totally into the contact, into the no grabbing.
And where's he from?
California.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this looks neat.
It really highlights, in terms of, like, again, the physicality of the prop. It's things like hooks and slides that wouldn't be possible with a ball and would be possible with some staffs, but to be able to hook might be possible depending on the end, but then you have this whole extra area to play in there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the prop itself is limiting, and yet also opens up this whole new world, you know? Yeah. It's fun. I don't know. But it's I find it's not for everyone, and you have to have like the proper set in order to really advance with contact. You know, I can't just pick up, I guess maybe it's similar with a staff. Like, yeah, you can do some contact moves with any staff, but ones that are a bit more like weighted on the end would theoretically, I guess, maybe be easier. I'm not sure.
What about fishtails? Do they, like, fishtails work with buugeng?
They work. I wouldn't say they like work very well though.
Okay, because this is Sebastian's like main.
Oh
yeah. Can I just share that video? I was just sort of sneaking a peek, and it's gorgeous.
So that's sure.
I remember seeing a clip from EJC that you did, and was I was just blown away. It's really such beautiful work.
So maybe to speak about a bit, what you see here, like also for the history aspect, when I started, there was 3 patterns. Now I have 6 families of moves. So this is something I actually haven't published so much yet. This video is like 2 days old, but this is the idea of, no, it's fine, please. So this is the combination of bounce ball and fishtail to find symbiotic movements based on the shape of the hand. When you're like this, you can grab a ball and you can balance the stuff. And before there was like eccentrical fishtails, which is the idea of working the stuff not from the center, but from the end of the stuff. Yeah. And now there's just credits.
I started it way too late.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Some really cool concepts there.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, the combination of the props is really interesting. Oh, we're too far here. And that's
sorry, this one is like sliding contact is also something that's fairly new in our world, I feel. And this is a classical juggler's pose.
It is.
It was, if you go back to In Isolation, the DVD, there are a few bits of stick isolation in that do use that sliding illusion as well. So
more
like
like
letting
contact,
it run through the hand.
Genius, right?
Yes. I'm
Jeeves,
trying to
yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. With like, just to say, like for us in stuff, it's quite important to differentiate between like contact means no grip. You know, also we talked before about like, but what Pich does is more stuff spinning or manipulation or something. But contact means not. We're still not sure what the definition of contact is, but as a working thesis, you can have 2 points of contact with the object, but you cannot have 3 or more. So grabbing is multiple, but we are still not set on this. We had 3 days of discussion on this, and
I find it incredibly fascinating when words and concept travel from different domains. They change definitions, and it's absolutely. I find that so fascinating. How something can mean something to a group, and then that concept or word is like borrowed and then develops a different definition in another group. And they're both valid because they're both reflecting different realities, but I find it really fascinating.
Have you oh, Tom?
Well, I just, we saw in contact juggling, like the old definition of it was, like, I mean, motion initial research into his light routine was, what can I do with this prop without ever holding it? I want to represent this fragility, this balance, so I'm never actually going to hold this prop. I don't know if my sound exploded there. Am I still coming across?
Yeah, we can hear you, and we're totally listening. I think everybody's like really thinking today.
I'm a bit robotic on here at times, and just in general. Kaylie, I think we're maybe losing you in a little bit, right? I wanted to.
I can stick around a bit more.
Diz has.
I just wanted to. Oh.
She had her hand up, I think, or no, she was just giving a thumbs up. Oh, yeah. That was interesting. Okay.
Yeah, just before we do lose you, and this kind of, it does tie into, especially that video we just watched. Again, thinking about the shapes, that video was dot and line that we just saw there. A lot of our thinking in contact is the point. It's the fixed point that moves around. When we're drawing shapes with a dot. This is our kind of paintbrush for everything. I'm wondering for other props, for staff, for hoop, for buugeng, do you think of the whole prop? Do you think of the shapes? Like what are you drawing with, basically?
Yeah, I personally do think a lot about the shapes. I think more specifically, I think about the inside of the curve, just because I find it complements a human body really well. You know, there's just so many ways that this inner curve of the buugeng can fit around our bodies, and I guess that's actually one of the ideas that started me on my contact journey. Was realizing I was like, there's a hole here or 2 holes in the prop that wasn't being used, and how to incorporate that. And it's just, it works so well. Also, just I think my geometry works well with the set of buugeng I have. So of course, you know, it works perfectly around my hips, around my shoulders. So I think about that inside of the curve when making shapes, and it's definitely, I think a lot about how can my body move and kind of mirror those shapes, and what other shapes can I create with the prop, not just what shape does the prop create.
It's very similar to the concept of negative space, right? Where you create things. Lisa?
No, you can finish your thought.
That was it.
It was a nice thought. For me, it started with really seeing like one of the blades, just one of the curve, and then put the faces on either one or the other, depending, like the leading or the non-leading one, depending on what effect I wanted to do. But I think now I really and by that I mean like the path is made from an outsider views. I really start to see it in swirls and spirals, and in a downbeat as well. That's come from it being spinning. Oh, everybody froze. That means you can't hear me anymore.
No,
I
we can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay,
I can hear
because
you.
in my screen, everybody stops moving at once, and I'm like, my internet is losing me if it's doing that.
Quick,
So
be a
yeah, so
statue.
don't do that. You're gonna make me panic. You're a good statue, Don. You've got practice. Not fair. So yeah, for me, it was like I still see it as the blade as well, but now I'm starting to see it more as spirals and as downbeats as well.
What do you
And
mean a downbeat?
when it's more like, imagine the boy, when you bring it down, you have that pull. That's
Yeah.
the downbeat I'm feeling. It's the pull down when the props go low in his circle. And the thing that I'm incredibly focusing on right now is not the prop. And by that I mean the rest of my body and the rest of the space is what I'm actually experimenting on more. Is what does the rest of my body do, and how does that relate to the prop, which is kind of what you were saying, Kaylie, as well. But this is the direction I'm going for, and I do find having just one instead of two buugengs is much more interesting, because you have all of your offhands who often take more space than the actual prop. I'm thinking of finding some transparent buugeng to make them disappear even more. That could be really cool.
Interesting, yeah.
Well,
Transparent
Nick
props.
has
acrylic,
acrylic
but
S.
they're too small.
They're so
But
small.
they're too small. They're beautiful. I really would like them. They're absolutely gorgeous, but they're too small. My arse needs to fit in it.
I've also had good conversations with them. They are like practically invisible on stage because of the flat plane. So they're just basically like using sheets of glass. You just see through them. But
contemporary.
Yeah, I mean, if you like, he was talking about like mirroring the sides of them or something like that, like making, anyway, but that's technical. Again, like how the construction of the prop will really influence the way that we use it, right? Which is interesting. Like that's probably, it could create a whole other vibe.
One thought to what you, Kaylie, said before. You said like contact buugeng has similarities to contact staff. Like my thought to this is just like, when I would see it in 3 steps, like contact staff means the prop is on the outside of my body. With buugeng, it's already that it curves nicely, beautifully around the body. And if you go a step further, you might end up with something like a hula hoop, where you are around, like the prop is around you. So it's kind of in the middle for me, between on me or around me. In the middle is buugeng.
Yeah,
oh,
definitely.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I relate totally. I tell people often that buugeng, it's just like a staff and a hoop combined, you know, and it has elements of both, but lacks elements of both as well. Yeah.
I've actually said I have a similar thing about a club. A club feels like a staff. It feels like a poi. It feels like a ball. Like they have properties of all of them all together. And despite it being like a very specific to juggling prop, it has these really nice curves that do include all of those things. That really was made for this thing that we do. It's really interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. What about contact poi? We didn't like mention anything about contact poi.
What?
No, and it's so interesting because I mean, it's literally using the same prop as contact ball, but with this extra counterweight attached as well. And you can see some of famed Viking swamp dweller Keith Marshall, who is an absolute poi machine. I think it was.
I don't remember anything he does.
I think it was Ronan who started using the stage balls as the poi ends, and they were just so visual. He wasn't even doing contact with them.
No, Ronan's actually, he told me a little story about this, and he got his inspiration to do that from club jugglers, not even from contact juggling, even though he used a stage ball. But I guess he was hanging around with a lot of jugglers, and the shape of the club, how it's just so much more round at that one end, which enabled people to do like chest rolls with their clubs. And that's actually where he got the idea to add a contact ball onto the end of his poi. Little did he know he was starting something huge.
Yeah.
It
But
completely exploded.
Yeah, I thought it was so funny that it wasn't even contact juggling that gave him that inspiration. Yeah.
No, but I think
That's actually,
it has changed. Like Surreal, I think, changed a lot of that. Like took both of them and put them together. But yeah,
there's a good mirror there for Surreal, because he also did a single at EJC, at a juggling festival. I think that there's like similarities with the buugeng there, to like, here's this new kind of style that's coming out, and we're going to put it on this big stage. Kind of making these pushes forward. And it's really interesting because it's similar but alien at the same time. If you're very used to contact, picking up the contact poi and trying that stuff feels very strange, because you have to really let it do its thing, because you're giving it some inertia to start with. Things like that finger stall, not to take anything away from Keith, but then you have this extra weight to balance, which is actually kind of easier, weirdly enough, because it's more like balancing a club or something like that. Again, it's this very interesting as the prop itself changes, like with the buugeng, like with even with the staff as well. It's a shame Mike's not here, because I remember in Edinburgh, Mike just basically going to the hardware store and buying every single variety of metal pole that they had available, cut to various different sizes, and then trying every possible wrap and waiting at the ends, and just every week coming out with a new prop to kind of find the perfect thing for contact.
He's a scientist.
Yeah. But yeah, you see, you have to be so aware of what the handle's doing with this stuff.
Yeah, this is rich. Oh my goodness. But it is that research, like that's something that's coming out, a lot of this, and it's something that's happening in circus quite a lot, is that everybody needs to differentiate. If you are actually a performer and you are performing for a living, then finding means to differentiate yourself can mean that you can get recognition and you can get, that kind of thing. But you do have to do the research, and you have to create new props, or you have to find the exact way that can become a thing. I think this actually is a great introduction to Ed. And
yes,
what Ed's doing with cigar boxes and blocks, and he's been using acrylics most of the time, and I haven't seen any videos of it yet, but I seen that he got Lightbox Monkey to make him acrylic boxes. And I wonder what that's going to be, because acrylic's so slippery, and some of this stuff about the cigar boxes, like these are true cigar boxes, the wood kind of has a little bit of grip, whereas an acrylic just doesn't have any at all. Like ideally, if it does, then it's been well used. But
it's interesting, because like if you're using stage ball and box, this stuff's actually very easy, because it does have, well, I mean, not all of this stuff, but being able to control it on the box, like this is difficult, because that acrylic is not messing around. It's got some weight behind it, some inertia. But
yeah, and there's a few other people doing it. Mellors did a bit, Tony Duncan did a bit. Like this isn't stuff that's totally new, but most people never use an acrylic.
No, exactly. And like these kind of things as well, that's what's possible because he's using an acrylic. Like the prop kind of dictating what's possible. Being able to spin it underneath is crazy. So good, this video. But I mean, and this is, like you said, like combining this stuff, combining the bounce and the fishtails, combining, like finding the space you've got by using contact, and then, well, what else? Like now that my hands are free because I'm using this contact space, what else can I incorporate with this?
I think there the first initial way, usually when you go combining things, is just like, okay, I use this repertoire and I use this repertoire and see if there is any links. But I find it really enriches. So in the beginning, like the simplest way always, obviously, is like I do something here and I do something else here, and then I have two things combined, but not really. It's just happening at the same time. And then when you manage to find new tricks, they will affect both. So like, for example, the fishtails I do when I do bounce juggling, they're not normal fishtails. They have a different pathway of the balance point, which I have to do in order to, for example, compensate that when you let the ball go, the hand becomes lighter, and my hand rises up faster because I let the ball go, and if I catch it, it gets heavier. So you have to compensate this in beforehand with the fishtail balance. Or you release high and you catch low, so your fishtail changes. And I think it's really enriching also for my understanding. And this example of fishtails got really enriched by the restrictions the bounce ball brought to it. So I think, yeah, it's combining the things will also enrich what you originally did. That's kind of
because it comes back on itself, right? And then it brings new learning to the original prop that you were working with. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Which, I mean, that could... Oh, go on, sorry.
I was just saying, like a new perspective. Yeah.
Which I think that's probably a good question to ask as well. Is like, are there things from your disciplines or from other disciplines that you think it would be good to put across to contact ball? Are there things that you're seeing in your disciplines like, oh, contact ball could do this if they put their minds to it? Like my example for like contact staff, we've seen matrix rolls, for example. The inertia of the staff means that these big, impossible rolls can happen, and trying to replicate that. So something like, I think it's called a Steve, but rolling from above and down behind and then back up. Replicating that in contact for me was like really just I opened my brain up to like, oh, I can actually do some contact staff rolling with this, like big movements. I'm wondering if there's other stuff that you feel can go across the barrier that way.
Nothing comes to mind, to be honest.
Maybe that's a good point to jump into this, to actually offer you some, start again, hello. We did a think tank last summer about trying to like work on contact stuff, what it is, what is definition, what are the fundamental movements and stuff. And we classified 8 first order movements the stuff can do. Maybe I can show them to you quickly, and then you can tell me which ones you can do with contact ball.
Oh yeah. Cool. I love a numerical list of things.
Right.
Listicles.
Wait a second. Can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wait, where are we? Oh, not here. Right. Well, what a presentation. Fantastic. Okay, give me a second.
Don't go too far down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. One moment.
Fenfire. I didn't know you were Fenfire. Oh my God. You hired Ryan a long time ago to go and help you. I remember that.
Yep. We learned a lot.
Great.
All right. So this is something, an exercise we did was like to really try to paint the positions. You either have stall or pathways, or this multiple lines here are like pivoting points on the body. In order to, for us, it was just checking if several moves would really have exactly the same line on the body. Like with stuff, it's a major difference if you go like this direction or that direction. So there is complementary moves like the devil roll and the angel roll. And they feel kind of similar, but we didn't know if it was really exactly the same path. They are. So that's something we spent a good chunk of time doing. And where is it? I marked it. All right. So this is also, we always define thesis or theories, and then we go off and check if they're true. So maybe in a year's time, we say this is all bollocks, but in the moment, this is what we work for. So the first order, meaning things to be separated, like the balance. Okay, that's quite obvious, where you try to maintain the vertical axis over a point on your balance. The roll, in our case, it's rolling along the length axis. With ball, you have all the axes. A pivot being that you have a certain point where the stuff will pivot over it. And kind of, as you can see, it also is kind of a spin involved with a balance. So we're still not sure what the separation is there. And yeah, these days new, you can do them off center as well. The spin or rotation basically just means, going around one of the axes, not the length axis, the other two, which are the same. And new one is a slide, which we haven't thought so much in contact. I don't know if this relates to ball, but with stuff, it's quite interesting that you can slide downwards like this. But there was also the idea of, could you balance the stuff here and then let it slide this way down the arm?
So we can't see you. Let's try that again. Can you do it again?
Oh, sorry. All right. So for slide, it's the idea that you can either way like slide like this on your body and do tricks, but also like to have it slide down like this, like a continuous balance, but having it sliding on your arm. We did some tests, but yeah, lots of stuff's in your nose, but not so much
Now,
yet.
for contact juggling, just I haven't tried it, but I feel like sliding would just end up like rolling, right?
Yeah.
If you had 2 points, if you think of that very like old school motion move where he does the like coming from here down like that kind of thing. Or like you've got there, that could be conceivably a slide, but you would need a second. You would probably need a second point.
Okay.
To stop it from rolling.
But as you say, I guess when you have one surface contact, the ball would roll. If you have two, it cannot roll by definition, then it has to slide. So maybe, I don't know. There is.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then we have, I think, 3 more. We have the wrap, which is debatable. Wrap meaning that you have like a spin and a balance, so it wraps around the body part, which again is kind of a pivot. So not sure. We think in stalls in terms of, again, our rotational direction is important in contact stuff. So if you change the direction and have a moment of feeling of 0G, that concerns a stall. And the translation is a new one by Fabio from Fibonacci. He also worked with Breadstuff a lot. The translation is something really new. The idea is, I don't know if you know staff technique, but we usually have like 2 sides, like right and left being wheel plane, front and back being wall plane. And amazing things can happen when you, in one moment in time, decide to pull from one side to the other without following the usual rules of having to do a figure of 8 or anything, just really like screenshot there, put it over and see what happens. And it's crazy. Like you can reverse directions without stopping the direction by translation, which we still don't, I don't understand why this still works, but yeah.
Jane says it sounds like a linear isolation. I'm not sure if anyone would agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we played around. Obviously, this is first order. First order means just this is the smallest building blocks you could break it apart to. And then second order would be to reassemble them, like,
Right, that's interesting. One becomes a matrix, one becomes a Steve, one becomes an angel. Yeah.
So I don't know if you can now come up immediately with a new contact ball move from this. But
I doubt at this very moment, but I could try. Does anybody have any questions about that theory? Like, does that translate to contact juggling? Do we have those 8 points?
I think there's definitely interesting stuff in there. The idea that stalling is very different in contact because a stall is a balance. It's literally just going into a balance and holding it. That's what we refer to as a stall because we don't have to worry so much. It's easier for us to remove it kind of as we're going along.
You watch Jordan's
videos. Oh yeah. And you can get better. Jane, jump in. Are you jumping in, Jane? Or
Yeah.
are you just,
in terms of stalling, in the sense that we've gotten from the contact staff idea of going to a stop, I think it would be more comparable to breaks in hoops. And with contact, you'd think, instead of rolling and stopping, you would have stop, go with another piece of you, or you would have, roll it and then let it go. Kind of the way that you do with a hoop, where you stop and let it go.
We call them traps usually. Traps, like trapping the ball and then letting it go. But yeah, that's interesting. So you call them breaks, yeah, like the wick whack wiggle whack or whatever.
Yeah, like because it's not that I'm trying to make it not a trap either.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So break, like with breaks.
like there's nice stuff. The tapping things back and using all that kind of stuff. Don't want to chest roll because I'm going to smash the microphone.
And
But
Robert
yeah.
says, that the symmetrical aspect makes the directionality different, which is
Yeah.
like
I think the pivoting would be interesting for contact. I think there is something to be said for that. Trying to think of pivot points. We're looking at spirals and things which feel kind of in this region of finding these different pivot points to move between.
I have a whole tutorial on that, and anything that in which it's us that's pivoting though, that not the ball. Whereas I find in his example, it's the staff that's pivoting. So
I'm wondering if the that between is something along those lines of finding a pivot point. You look like you're ready to demonstrate.
Just to go quickly to the stall back. So for us, what you said, okay, let's see if this works. If I would fishtail and then I would place it and balance it, that wouldn't be a stall with us. That would be a fishtail, a dynamic balance to a balance, a point balance. Yes. A stall is something that we cannot hold forever. Like a stall requires a counter movement. Like for example, if I don't know if you can see me, it's better. So a stall to the outside, if I do nothing, I will lose the control. So a stall means we only have a fraction, a minute, a second of time in order to reverse or go further or something. But it's not like a balance where I can stop and drink tea or, So just...
It's like a suspension.
Maybe suspension, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any contact ball trick where you can go there, have this moment of, it's there, but then you have to go back?
Well,
something like this?
I talk about this stuff if I'm teaching of these kind of different levels of balance, which is kind of how I sort of see it. But you have these dynamic balance, which over time, because we've got more control, because of the point we can make them more static. A static balance being something very solid, very easy to hold, like it doesn't matter what you're doing. Something like a one finger, or on the thumb, like that for me is very dynamic. But then you see Laura, or you see Mike, just hit that completely solidly, and it feels more like a static balance. Top of the head, when you're starting out top of the head, people are all over the place. And now people play top of the head gladiators and skateboard and leap around without thinking about it. I would say definitely those kind of dipod stalls or single finger stalls feel very much like that, especially rolling into it. Diz, were you jumping in there?
I need to dart away, everyone.
Okay, Kaylie.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Super interesting. Thanks for coming and sharing your perspective. Have a great day and stay safe.
Yeah, you guys too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
So
you.
I just wanted to clarify, a balance is 1 point on the ball and a stall is 2 points. And a trap is where the ball is prevented from moving where it is stalled.
That's
I
fascinating.
think
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, levels of control. Yeah, definitely. And we talk about like 1, 2, 3 points of contact and the difference between. I actually didn't know that in contact staff it was such that was such a not fixed thing, but a defined thing that it is fixed.
No, really. We as I said, we are trying. There's a group of people here with Mike and so on. We try to formulate these things. They're all proposals. It's not like you can go to another country and they will agree to this. But this is what we try to do: is to find definitions, not to limit people, but to have something concrete to talk about. And then you will find a lot of troubles and problems when you define stuff. And because of these problems, you will find new tricks. So that's a nice side effect.
Tom and I are exploring very similar things. I think we have 3 discussions on definitions of contact juggling already. It's and every time it just becomes more problematized. Like the layers,
Yeah.
reveal.
But I really like what Teresa said. That's really cool. Like this, we have this a long discussion about 1, 2, or 3 and more points and what to call this kind of thing. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that. In fact, I have some use for it.
Yeah, the trick that I just showed is both a trap and a roll.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also isolated.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a really beginner trick, and it's really nice to share with everybody. So
Cool.
Perfect.
Like
I want to start wrapping it up. We're getting to about an hour and a half. And I just want to start putting it out there about future and like, where do we want this to go? Where is it? Where do you think, what do you imagine the possibilities? What's that happening there? Sorry to interrupt. You had something to say. Maybe it was important. But.
No, I was going to say that, it ties into this because that work that's going on in contact staff at the moment, that really coming to grips with these fundamentals, like what are the fundamentals, what are the building blocks of this stuff, that would be so relevant as well. How can we share this information? How can we get the contact POI, the contact hoop people to see that information, to share, and then to think on it in their own terms as well?
Like for me personally, what changed was this idea of a think tank that changed everything. Like we did 2 so far, and it's basically having 3 days. That's important to come back to the topics. It's not just we meet one time and we talk and then everybody goes off and dreams, but no, we sleep over it, come back, we sleep over it, come back, and have 5 or 6 hours a day. People had to be there. People had to work. There was a moderator. There was somebody leading. There was somebody drawing. There was somebody putting what was said into words. There was results being done, like kind of trying to approach it less as a fun jam to swap skills, more to the painful work. Like writing definitions down is not fun. You argue about words. And is this a balance? Is this a balance? No, I don't know. 2 hours later, and you're like, can we just juggle, please? It's not always fun, but for me, it changed a lot. Like just this seriousness in terms of trying to verbalize what we're doing, trying to draw what we're doing. Like in the first think tank for me, my understanding of fishtail changed fundamentally because Magritte was starting drawing. I had 4 shapes to describe certain stalls and fishtails, and he drew 8 flip charts full of patterns. Just by the thought of him, like, if it looks pretty on paper, it might look pretty in juggling. And we spent weeks, and I'm still spending days trying to do them. Theoretically they're possible because they contain visual references of fishtail technique. But practically, I still can't do them. They're really tough. But I think stuff like this could be one way to further it more, and maybe even go cross prop. Like so far we have done it staff only because we're still also learning how to do these kind of things, but I would hope that like in the next couple of years it would be so interesting to do this kind of thing we're doing here right now, on a 3-day 5 hours a day marathon of only this, nothing else. You're not allowed to juggle for fun. You're only going to work on the big questions. Yeah, sorry, and that's the last big thing, the questions. That's the important thing. A think tank is driven by the questions that are asked. And formulating this question is really hard and a lot of work. Like, great, we have all this talent here. What's the question? You know, like, what do we do? That's major work. And yeah, I think sharing these questions between different kind of think tanks around the world would be very valuable. For me, more valuable than sharing the knowledge. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's one of the reasons we're here doing this, is because there's so much stuff online of just sharing like tricks and sharing things like that, but there's not as much for contact ball, especially of actually talking about the fundamental underlying things as well. So yeah, it's definitely something that's needed out there.
If you had a question to the contact juggling community, and this is totally on the spot, so like don't feel bad if you don't have an answer, but if the contact juggling community should search for a question in relation to this other props and us, what would you think, what would you ask of us as a contact staffer? What should we be looking at?
Like for me, contact ball is kind of is a pure shape, because all axes are the same. And this is in some weird way limiting, because as you don't have a length axis, you cannot pivot so nicely or not so easily, or as you said, inertia in the big rolls and so on. So, what do you ask the source? That's a
What do you ask the source? Maybe that's actually the question.
I will think about this.
Okay.
From the top of my head.
It's a very difficult question. So yeah, Tom?
I do think, I think you've maybe already touched on it slightly. I think I'll jump to you in a second there. Just what you mentioned about making shapes, actually visualizing shapes before mechanically doing it.
And maybe because I like to build props, so that's a question. Contact staff deals with mostly external design. So on the outer shell, we mount different weights to create different inertias. The contact ball, they would have to be inside mounted, because you need the outside shell. So let's take basic geometric shapes, a pyramid, another ball, and a cube. What does it do to your contact if you would have these interior designs? This is not just a theoretical question. You have to build props for that, but something like this.
So interesting. Yeah. I remember we had Mellors and I had a magnet ball. Like it was just a design, like you put pictures in it. It was really fun to play with multi-ball in these two half balls. It really changes the shape, and you can have 4 of them and spin a pyramid quite well. Just half of the shape, it still works, and it's really interesting. But then it starts to veer away from contact juggling and being a totally new shape. So.
Lisa, sorry.
My internal question that we keep arguing about is, what is contact juggling? Because no, but I'm explaining why I'm bringing it back, and we don't need to have that conversation. Is when we look at another prop, you're like, oh, this is contact staff. There's staff and there's contact staff. You look at buugeng. There's contact buugeng. Why or how? I'm not sure how to formulate that question. But if you look at contact ball, what is just ball is toss? I don't know. What is it? Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
I think that all those areas are contact juggling. They're just not contact ball.
Yeah, that definitely. But
they're all forms of contact juggling, even if they deny it.
No, I agree with you, Diz. I totally agree.
Spinning, contact poi, even some of the yo-yo.
That hand sack thing that's like better than fushigi, but has a similar vibe.
If you touch it and maintain a hold, I think it counts.
Yeah.
What I
And
meant.
oh, go on. Sorry.
What I and yes, I agree. This is why we have this chat, because now contact juggling is anything can be contacted. Sorry for made up of words, but it's the idea that you have a discipline like a prop that has a death prop, and then you can contact it. And but in what we're doing with contact ball, it's everything we do is just contact it. What happens when you don't contact the ball? Does that make sense? I'm trying to go in
Then
the
it's
other way
just
around.
juggling. And then what is
I
juggling?
have no answers. That's my question.
I think we've got another point down there. Yeah, jump in. You have to unmute yourself.
Oh, I can.
Or Dawn has to unmute.
I'm back. I'm here. I have a question regarding your contact balls, because in my understanding, you either use solid balls or shallow balls. But if I translate it in terms, for example, from Seb's fishtails, he uses asymmetrical staffs where the balance is asymmetrical. Did you try use balls that are not completely one thing?
Something like
Silex balls.
Silex balls or Russians on a more extreme level. So rolling Russian balls, which some people actually do and do very well, but because you've got the filling, be it sand or whatever it is that's in there, you do get that kind of whip effect as the momentum builds up on one side and it whips around. But you also get this interesting effect where you've seen someone drop a Russian, or you've dropped Russian, it carves this really nice circle, a spiral as it comes to a stop. There's almost certainly room to be played with there, with understanding how this like spiraling effect works.
Yes, because most of the props that I understand, there are movable inside. I mean, we tried it on stage with honey, and then because the honey just makes it it drags very slowly.
Yes.
But I would be interested in to see if you have a ball and there's like a second ball attached to one side, so it's controllable, that it's always on the same spot and giving you the counterweight on the same spot. But then you would go into Seb's direction of redefine your prop and go into prop building.
But it's a thing which could definitely be played with. A lot of the thing with contact is that it's on the surface. Like we literally use a transparent prop a lot of the time. Everything's on display. If we were able to play with that, if we were able to play with like a gaffed ball or a trick ball in some way, there would be incredible effects to be had. I'm certain of it. But you get this. We deal with lots of micro movement. Staff has a great deal as well, especially your balances. With a ball, this is a big one, so you can kind of get away with a bit more. When you're using like say 100 millimeters, like a 4-inch ball, those micro movements build up and build up. So you would be able to do some very interesting effects, but I think you would find yourself limited on other stuff as well, which I'm sure is the case with the asymmetrical staffs.
Yeah, I mean, that's a challenge, isn't it? The challenge to find new approaches. I didn't say it would be easy. It's just more of the idea of, if you look at it, with the balls, there is not a huge evolution in the prop itself. There is an evolution in tricks and movement. And when I look at the other props regarding poise, stuff, buugeng, whatever we spoke about today, there has been a change in the history of the past years. Mm-hmm. And so it's just I'm just wondering that I understand it's tricky, but I love the challenge.
There's definitely people have done, when people have done it, it's been very effective. So Laura, Teku, and Dawn, what you've been doing with Buddy, having a very definite facing to the ball. So Laura did a black and a white, two halves together, so that on rolling it can change color from the audience's facing, things like that. So it's not necessarily the prop that are changing, but the visual image is completely different. So yeah, when it can be done effectively, but to actually use that to our advantage. Go on, Sebastian.
The incredible simplicity.
You go on, Lisa. What did you say?
Everybody froze again. I think
Oh, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Everybody becomes
We can hear you
receptive.
and see you.
Okay, sorry. The incredible simplicity of the bow make it very, very challenging to modify.
And I
I've
think we just desire to keep going back to the simplicity. I think that contact jugglers are a little bit
Simple.
Well, you have the perfect prop. Why do you want to be complicated about it? But to what Flo said, he's my brother, and so we share a certain mindset about this kind of thing. So here's the suggestion. I don't know if you could see this. So this is a ball, and the black spot is the extra weight I think Flo referred to, and it's balanced, so it's on the top. And we are balancing right now. You are balancing it right now on a platform 1, and there's a platform B which is higher. So usually you would need a certain energy to bring it up there, but because of this extra weight, it would actually like just only move to the left, all right, in your case, rather than have to move the whole ball up. I think maybe this was something along the lines of Flo's saying. So maybe you can do a stall here, and then the ball by itself rolls up here, which you actually. Yeah, because
so then that would be the basis. You would be looking at steps, and that would be your, instead of lines being your kind of base, which is what in contact we think a lot about pathways and lines. You're thinking about steps instead. Definitely.
Even if it's rolling on your body, if it doesn't roll perfectly, but it does like this asymmetrical spirally thing, even if it goes on your body, you might discover new ways how it's going over your body. I mean, it's gonna be tricky, but it's all gonna be a thing. Either it's moving like this or it's moving like that, and suddenly the direction of rotation is becoming an important factor that could create new kinds of tricks.
It seems like it would roll like an American football.
Yeah, basically. But what is contact with an American football?
Yeah, and I mean, like with the fireball, we've been experimenting with lots of different designs and weights, but most of our focus is not like what is interesting about this new one. It's more like how could we get this more like a ball?
And that's in stage balls. It's the same. It's how can we make it lighter? How can we make it heavier? How can we make it look nicer, bigger, smaller, rather than what can we do to upset the balance, and how can we play with that? So that would
That's
be
a really interesting question.
Could be good to
and it's going to be painful because like 80% of what you know is not going to work,
Right.
And you're not going to know which ones are the 80% and which ones are the few ones that might work. But
fascinating.
Okay,
Well,
we're in an hour and 40, guys. So we're gonna.
That's a good time for us all to go and get a bread knife and a stage ball, and we'll start modifying some props.
Kill Buddy. No, wait, no. And on that note, I hope you guys have an easy day. We're not going to end the chat, just the recording. To all the YouTube people who are watching, thanks for joining us here. And next week we have no plan. Hopefully they will. Hopefully we may leave our houses soon, but. I hope you guys have a good day, and for those in the US, please stay safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take care, guys. Thank you so much.
Stop recording.